Hello, Rise Up Nation. We're back for another episode of Rise Up in Real Estate, and I'm excited. You guys always think I'm excited, but I am excited this week for this episode because I've got a great friend of mine, another broker owner, CEO of a real estate, just a great real estate operation in another part of our country. I'll let him tell you a little bit about that. But I want you to meet my good friend and now your good friend, Tyler Morton with Remax Victory and Affiliates. Tyler, thanks for being on the show today.
Pat, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I remember those of you that are listening today, like we're in coastal South Carolina. Tell us where you are, Tyler.
I'm in Dayton, Ohio. So our office spans from Central Ohio to Central Kentucky, but headquarters in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. Awesome, man. You know, I didn't think about this when we were chatting before the episode, but what a crazy few days for like Ohio State, Florida State. I mean, we could do a whole episode on that. Hasn't everybody talked about what's happened?
No, and I appreciate your post the other day. I almost commented on it because I was looking at it and I was like, man, I do feel bad for Florida State. But I agree with you. Like if you look at the odds, if you were gambling the line spread on those, I'm sorry, they're not going to win.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel so bad for that quarterback. I mean, he was, and I remember the beginning because we're ACC country here with Clemson and all of that. But I remember when his season started this year, there's a lot of naysayers, like he couldn't take them where they used to be, and he did. And then he got hurt. And I just think you have to take that into consideration. The proof will be, what does Alabama do against Michigan?
Right.
And what is, I guess Florida State now has got Ohio State. Is that right? Or they got Georgia? I can't remember who they have. Maybe Georgia.
It's flipped around a little bit. Because I saw last night, like some people were saying Florida State the fans were calling for them to reject the bowl bid altogether.
Oh.
Right. So I hope that doesn't happen, but
I don't know how you can do that with the amount of money attached to it. I don't think the athletic director probably wouldn't let him do that.
Right. Well, and I just saw that our quarterback entered the portal this morning. So we'll see.
There's a whole nother episode, the transfer portal and NIL and all of that. It's just my son. I have a son that's 21, and he's got a friend that he played upward basketball with when he was a kid. I mean, I remember the guy when he was 8 years old.
Sure.
And he's at UNC Chapel Hill now, and he's got T-shirts with his likeness on it. And I mean, it's just so strange. I'm like, dude, but he makes money doing that. It just college kids can do that in some places now. But I forgot. So you're in Ohio and you're a CEO of an organization, a real estate organization. Tell me a little bit about that, just to give my listeners a frame of reference. Like where are you coming from? Size of your business and what you're involved with day to day.
Sure. So started in 2007 at the best of times, right? Right before
So did we.
But it made us who we are today because I didn't have 10,000 square feet. I didn't have 10 admins working the front desk. When I started, it was myself. I had a partner that I eventually bought out. And my mom was my admin because I didn't know anything about running QuickBooks or anything like that. And she owned a store, consignment shop for 15 years and knew how to do that. So worked really well together, but grew from basically no agents to now we're sitting right around 215 between all the offices. I'll give you the quick synopsis, but 2007 started the office, 2009 bought my second franchise, 2013 bought out my partner. We started a software company together. He had moved to California and he still runs that to this day. I'm a minority owner in it, but it does very, very well. And 2014 opened my third and like a month later acquired my fourth. And then fast forward to 2020 and Kent. So I partnered up with Kent and Rod and got into the Kentucky market. So 3 more offices there. So
wow.
Day to day. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, and you also said day to day you run a small team. Well, it's small by personnel, but there's a lot of volume, but you run a team also.
Yeah. So it's funny, we always joke that I'm the CEO and janitor because as you know, running a business, you have to do a little bit of everything. And I'm surrounded by amazing staff. And I think you have to be when you get to the numbers that we have and the volume that our office does. But I do run the team as well. I'm not actively really selling unless it's really close family or friends. Most of the time I'm handing that stuff off to the team, but I use it as a testing bed for any of the tools and technology that we adopt, because I'll spend the tens of thousands of dollars to test stuff to find out what is working. And like I said, maybe some of this stuff works for my team, maybe it doesn't for yours, but maybe vice versa. Maybe this wasn't a good fit, but I know you run your team a little bit differently. So I will tell you, like, hey, whether it's lead gen or CRMs or just new technology for media tours or something like that. Well, that's kind of how I use it as a testing bed, but very successful team as well.
Yeah, that's great. And we were just talking before the show. I wish I'd made this more of a priority to talk about during the show, but we were talking about your family a little bit. Like your late dad was quite the engineer, I guess. You
Yeah,
said
these
he was
two behind
involved in.
me,
Yeah.
chief engineer of the F-15 Eagle and the B-2 Spirit. So it was cool to see this year. They actually just did we have the Air Force Museum here at Wright Pat,
Hmm.
and they just had the Pioneers of Stealth monuments put up, which is really cool because a lot of the guys that are on there, my dad was with. I mean, he was, like I told you ahead of time, uh, chief engineer of B-2 before it was declassified. So he'd go places before we had cell phones. He'd tell my mom, "Hey, I can't tell you where I'm going," and I can't imagine the strain on like a marriage, as
Whew.
newlyweds, and he's traveling, saying, "Hey, I can't tell you where I'm going. If you need to get a hold of me, call my office." But
Yeah, that is. If I tried to pull that with Mandy, like, hey, I wouldn't have a place to come home to. She said,
right,
there's no reason to call, right? Just come on
yep,
back and you go to your own apartment." That's pretty impressive. I mean, that's neat. Isn't the stealth? I was telling my son, he got this little. I have a 5-year-old. He got this little package of jets for his birthday, and one of them looked like the stealth. I'm sure it wasn't exactly what your dad designed and engineered, but wasn't that the one that was flying and they couldn't find it, right? Because the pilot ejected and it went on for several more minutes and it actually crashed in South Carolina.
yeah. I think that was an F-35, which has a lot of stealth capabilities. But yeah, that's by design. I think I talked to my brother about it, who also works with planes. He's on simulators, but he said, yeah, it's not. There's no like, hey, accident button happening. If it
Right.
ejects, that's what's going to happen. So kind of
That's
crazy.
incredible. Are you a kind of a plane junkie too? Like, do you like these things too?
I like them, but no, not to the extent. I mean, my brother could tell you stories for days and hours, but no, not to that extent. I like going to the Air Force Museum, taking my kids there, and kind of giving them the history of stuff that my dad worked on, which is cool. But it's
Yeah.
it's even better to have my brother there with us because he can explain it in way more depth than I can.
Right, right. He knows when he gets invited, he's the tour guide. So
Exactly.
tell me about your family. You're married, you got how many kids you got?
Yeah. So married, 3 kids, born and raised in Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is a suburb of Dayton. My sister lives here locally. My brother lives here locally. My mom lives here locally. My in-laws live here locally. So
That's great.
I always joke, born and raised, can't get away, but it's home and I
Yeah.
love it. It's we just brought home a new puppy this weekend, so adding to the chaos.
What kind of puppy?
It's a pit mix.
Oh,
I
nice.
adopted it from
Nice.
the animal shelter, but it's our third pit mix. They've been wonderful dogs for us, and yeah, kids were super excited.
How old are your children and what ages? I mean, what gender, if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
David is 12, Layla is 10, and Jameson is 8. So
Okay, the reason I asked that is a great point of reference. You listeners, you have to know this. Like this guy, you already can tell probably in the 10 minutes we've been together, but there's a lot going on here. He's got a lot of things. I even heard he's a minority owner in a software company in California, 3 kids, bustling, like really successful real estate business. I probably hadn't even scratched the surface of the other things that you're involved in with investment properties and I don't know, mortgage insurance, whatever else you might be doing. But got a lot of irons in the fire with 3 kids, a family, very involved with both families at home nearby. So, I mean, how do you do it all, man? I mean, do you sleep?
I don't. No, I joke. I actually don't. I don't sleep probably as much as a lot of people. I'm a night owl, so and my when my wife and I first got married, she was working third shift at the hospital, so it was, I was at home with the kids while she was gone, and I became a night owl. Not that I wasn't already, but I'm probably up until between midnight and 2 every night, and my oldest gets on the bus, or we take him to school. He gets up at 6:15, so I'm up slightly before that and getting him ready for school.
You're still so young. Wait till you get my age. You won't be doing 4 hours of sleep. I'm telling you.
I
That's
know.
why I keep having kids, so to keep me up, because I could sleep. I'm a sleeper. Well, that's really really cool. I've been impressed. I remember the first time we met. I don't remember the event that it was at, but Mandy, I think my wife knew you a little bit before I did. And then when you and I met, we sat somewhere and just had I don't know if we had a beer and just talked. And it was you were so comfortable. Like,
You and
here's
I,
a,
you and I
go
first
ahead.
met, I believe, in Maui.
Well, that might have been why I was comfortable.
Yeah. So I think that was the first we had met, and then I don't remember where we hung out afterwards. And we did sit down and just hung out and talked and went over each other's business and kind of got
Yeah.
to know each other.
Yeah, Tyler's the kind of guy, if you met, he's very unassuming, just really down to earth, good guy. Tell me, I usually ask this at the end, but I want to ask this now. Tell me how we can find you. Like, you do I know, do you do a podcast? You do a show too, don't you?
Yeah, so it's a video podcast, kind of turned audio podcast, usually short 15-minute segments.
Okay.
But yeah, it's Agent After Hours.
Okay.
So it started out, Mark Berger in my office and I, back in the day, started a little segment called Bourbon and Real Estate. And we would literally just try new bourbons and talk about real estate, what's going on in our local market. And I helped bring Rebar Camp. I don't know if you have that where you're.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that in Ohio, and I helped bring it here. I was one of the 3 founders of bringing it to Dayton or Ohio, I should say. But it got big quick and became very, I'll call it politicized, with the board getting involved. And it's supposed to be the unconference, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, next thing I know, it's like they're bringing in these national speakers and making it like a keynote. And I'm like, that's the exact opposite of what this is supposed to be. It's supposed
Right.
to be everybody. I mean, it started in a bar of people just hanging out talking about real estate. And it's like, hey, if you want to learn about this, go sit at that table.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, once we got over 300 people, the board kind of got involved and kind of took it over. And I was like, it's not really my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I did probably piss some people off. We did sponsor it as a company, and the shirts that we had made were, if you're looking for trinkets, keep moving. All we're handing out is higher commission splits.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
so
I like that.
they didn't love that, but yeah. So I ended up starting Agent After Hours, which we ended up, prior to COVID, going to a brewery, local brewery, every month and just talking about real estate. And when we went virtual with it, it became more of a podcast style and
Yeah.
started bringing on people with expertise in different niches. So I've had Eric Russell on, who's actually an agent of mine that didn't love real estate and went on to, I told him back in like 2013, 2014, hey, why don't you start a YouTube channel? And he did one on fitness trackers and has like 60,000 subscribers. And that became a big part of his business,
Yeah.
or his
Wow.
income, I should say.
That's amazing.
So had people like that on, and then anything from former newscasters, made real estate agents, to building a team leaders, team members, working your sphere, every niche that you could possibly think of, we've had on there.
That's neat. So the other day we were Tyler and I were lucky enough, we were recognized with it. And by the way, he's a Remax. I think you heard me say that at the beginning, but just like us, we were at this conference, this awards conference in Sonoma, California, for the top, I think it was the top 80 brokerages in US and Canada. And we were both honored to be there. And it was funny, we were having this big mastermind discussion, just to tell you who Tyler is. And everybody was asking, so a few people were asking questions about AI, and 15 people stood up and said, where's Tyler? Where's Tyler? Where's Tyler? And Tyler I think you were walking back from the refreshment table or something, walking across the room.
No, I had a recruiting call.
There you go.
So I walk in and they just hand me the microphone and they're like, tell us about AI. And I'm like, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
But,
I do appreciate that you seem to always be, like, you and I worked on a CRM that you were piloting back a few years ago, and you do seem to be on the cutting edge. What makes you that way, Tyler?
Gosh, boredom. I don't know how else to explain it. ADD. I love tech. I love exploring and breaking things. I love just
Yeah,
seeing what I can automate because, like you said, time's important to me. So what can I
yeah,
automate? And that's going back to 2007 when I said we didn't have 10,000 square feet, we didn't have 10 admins. We had to systematize our business. That's the only way we were able to streamline what we do. So we were like one of the first that had a digital document storage platform so that we could
right.
review everything instead of going through paperwork. And then it transitioned into digital signature platforms like Dotloop. Um, so yeah, the curiosity certainly has been a big part of it. But also I just enjoy it. And so yeah, AI is a loaded question for sure. We could talk for an hour about it,
Yeah.
but certainly embracing it, and it's simplified our lives by quite a bit.
It seems like we're gonna have to do another episode. I've already got 3 topics that I've written down that we got to talk about. But you might have a little bit of your dad in you, that engineer, that curiosity that he and your brother seem to both have. You probably have that too, because I know you're one of the first people I think of to call when something comes up, and that's pretty good. So with that in mind, I want to ask you a question. I want to have you pontificate for a moment
Oh,
about
absolutely.
let's do the crystal ball. Where do you think we're headed in the real estate space? Maybe highlight a few things you feel like agents should be paying attention to if there's
Everything's
agents
going to
listening.
crash.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Good. Well, now
No,
that you have our attention.
yeah, no. I get asked this question all the time. Hey, agents and consumers, they read the clickbait headlines, right? But I think you were at the same conference I was in Sonoma, and I think Buffini nailed it. Brian Buffini talked about, hey, we had 4 point whatever million homes sold this year, and it's going to go up. Uh, we're going to have more demand next year. We've had this pent up demand, right? That we've never solved the issue of because we were so far behind on new construction. Did interest rates kind of tame that down? Absolutely. Um, but we still have that demand. We just have a lot of home sellers that are saying, hey, I'm comfortable enough with my mortgage payment right now at 3% that I'm not going to move when it's 8. But will they reconsider if there's more inventory when it's 5 to 6? And I think the answer is yes. Because again, referencing Buffini, he talked about these homeowners aren't necessarily happy that they bought the home that they did with the multiple offers they were in during COVID. So they got wrapped up in the bidding process. They bought a house and then realized all the things that they didn't like about it. So we're going to have a tremendous demand, I think, continue through 2025. And I agree. I mean, you've already seen a little bit of relief on mortgage rates, even end of this year, which I did not expect. But I do believe we'll be back down in a reasonable 5.5 to 6% range within the next year or so. What that will do is a little bit terrifying. Are we going to be right back in the same boat we were earlier this year or early last year with multiple offers and things going pending within 24 hours? Probably. But it's that's where we're at.
And you're pretty much in a just a typical residential normal America market. There's nothing vacation about your area. There's nothing.
No, no, if you look at like top areas to buy homes, Ohio is very, very affordable, both Ohio and on the other side of the river in northern Kentucky. Very affordable in terms of what you get price per square foot. And that's why those areas have been so hot. Um, Cincinnati, Columbus, Dayton's kind of the middle ground. We've never had and I remember 2008 hit, and I went to a conference in Vegas and talked to an agent out there just at happy hour at the bar. Wasn't even there. She wasn't there for the Remax conference. And she was like, oh, our home values are down 60%. And I went, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've never had that giant rise and fall. We've had consistent appreciation and things have doubled over the last 10 years, but that's not uncommon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think we will see. I've seen it East Coast, I've seen it West Coast on some of the articles, but I'm not working those markets, so I don't know. Are those just clickbait as well? Um, we're not going to have that shift backwards. I think
Yeah.
we'll continue to have the same appreciation that kind of we've had over the last few years.
Yeah, cool. And what are you recommending to your crew, your agents, your team? What should they be doing? It sounds almost silly to even ask you this because the answer is probably what they always should be doing. But what should they be doing right now to get ready? If, like, we've seen the rates come down, which is a surprise to me also. But what happens next? What do they need to be prepared for?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to do a video last 2 weeks ago with some of our friends, and that
Yeah,
was the question: is what should agents be doing right now? And it is a lot of it's back to basics. It's stay in touch with your sphere, reach out to your influencers within your community and within your sphere that are going to be the ones that refer you business. Double down on social media; it's free. Double down on video; it's free. Make sure that you're the expert and you're the resource that they know to go to when they have a real estate related question. So it's what was I listening to earlier? I think I was listening to an interview with Chris Smith and Joe Herrera. And Joe said, we don't want to hear the simple things because they're easy. We just don't want to do them. And
yeah.
that's so true. We want to make things way more complex and like, oh, I can't do this right now because I need these systems in place. If you just spent 20 minutes a day reaching out via text to 20 people, like your business would be just fine. And so that's what I'm telling agents is get back to basics, stay in touch with people in your sphere and get back to work.
It's scary that that works, and I think you'll see the people that take that advice might be more prepared when things change. And I'm glad that your agents are lucky to have you because they're getting this information. I think there's probably a lot of brokerages that don't even. I sent a note through our interweb the other day that said, "Hey, rates are falling. Reach out to someone and let them know." I mean, it
Yeah.
seems like just basic. People that were on the fence might get knocked off the fence, but they won't if you don't continue that conversation.
No, and
Um,
I just did one with our LO and I did a video with him to say, hey, we see all these headlines about how the T-bill or the bonds market affects real estate. Tell me about this spread, how it's changed over the last few years. Break it down for me like I'm a fifth grader. Because and I wanted our agents to hear that so they could do the same thing for their clients.
that's smart. Yeah.
So it is, you have to be that resource. And this all started, my LO now texts me weekly with what's going on with rates and why it's happening and what he thinks is going to happen the following week. And it started out that he was sending me like an article or a video of somebody else saying it. I'm like, no. I don't want to read what they say. I want to know from you because you're the expert. I don't
Right.
know that
Right.
person.
Right.
And so I think agents need to do the exact same thing. If you go into RPR, talking about AI, I think you have RPR access with your
Yes,
MLS.
we
Yeah.
do.
They have a tool in there that you can go on and just click your neighborhood. I think it's under neighborhoods and click on research and click on generate AI content. And it gives you an entire script of what's happening in that neighborhood or that
Yeah.
city. And so if you could be that resource, I don't see any agents out there doing it. You're going to look like an absolute rock star just by spending 5 minutes a week giving them or a month doing a little update.
Okay, folks, you just heard the tip of the day. I don't know what to call it, but I'm writing that one down myself. Neighborhood AI. That's a good tip because I love what you said too, that you can be that source.
Yeah.
That's what I almost do on a daily basis, and just so I'm doing this call with you, consuming content so that when I have the chance to share it, in my case, with other agents that aren't in our company, they think I'm on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just keeping fresh, just keeping current. Um, and there's so many sources, and I hope the listeners out there they're listening to the show right now will add you as one of those sources. I really mean it when I say you have more valuable content than most of our peers and colleagues because you enjoy it.
I love doing it. And it really is. And I talked about it in my Tech with Ty newsletter last week, and it was repurpose content. All I'm
Yeah,
doing and you're doing is curating content and recycling it and saying it in our own words or repurposing it in a way that agents understand or consumers understand.
yeah. And if you don't want to do that, AI can do that for you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
They can change it to sound like Tad, which is very strange.
Yes.
Great. Okay, Chris, that's a good crystal ball look, and I hope everybody's ready for what's going to happen. And you lead with your attitude. I don't think it really matters what happens. If you're best attitude, hardest worker, you're going to win. But if it does turn good, like the rates go down in the spring could be really good. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
What would you say? I love this question. Most people hate this question because they don't like to talk about themselves. But from an outsider's point of view, if I had asked you what is your superpower, what are you best at? Like if Tyler's going to do one thing and do it well, what's it going to be?
Oh, geez, that is a tough one.
Uh-huh.
Is curating content a superpower?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it took me I say that with a little laugh, but it did take me forever to realize, like, hey, I am absorbing and I read a ton of articles. So I learn, like, I'm a big proponent of never stop learning. But I realized that I wasn't regurgitating or recycling this information in a way that was necessarily helpful to agents,
Okay.
or consumers for that matter. But it was because I thought it was something they didn't want to hear. And so things that I take for granted, like, oh, they already know how to do that on Facebook. No, they don't. Like 90% of agents probably do not. So dumb it down and start them from scratch on how to do stuff. So I think that's delegating, certainly not my superpower. I've gotten better at it. But I would say, yeah, curating or digesting content and then recycling it.
Yeah, I love that. My coach told me, he actually called me out in a big way because I kind of brag. Didn't realize I was doing this, but I brag about being a consumer of content because I don't know how many things come to my email and I really do read them. It's funny,
Yeah.
you and I were talking about books. We don't really read books, but I read a lot of other stuff or listen to it or whatever. But my coach said, hey, you might want to consider trying to be more of a contributor instead of just a consumer.
Yeah.
What are you doing with all that stuff that you're consuming? And that's just what you said. I mean, now you repurpose it and you turn it around and you make it so your audience can understand it, whatever that audience might be.
Yeah. And that's something that took a lot of time because, again, I just thought, oh, their agents aren't going to want to hear this. This is way too nerdy for them, or this is way too, elementary. And it's not.
Yeah.
They want their hands held. They want to know how to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, and I've seen. I'll prop you up one more time. I've seen a lot of newsletters in my career, a lot of newsletters, and yours is by a mile one of my favorites.
Well, thank you.
Your agent after, or your tech with Ty agent after hours concept is really good because I can tell it takes a lot of work to do it.
It does.
I mean,
I've gotten it down
I like
to a
Happy
manageable
Grasshopper.
time, but
Yeah, it takes a lot of time because I like Happy Grasshopper or whatever might create stuff based on an interview they did with you. I think that's smart, but I can tell when I read yours, I understand that you put in the work in most cases and then turned it around and gave it to us, which is amazing. So I think curating content could be your superpower. You can have that outfit at Halloween. We'll let you have that. We discussed earlier that you and I are not voracious readers. We're voracious listeners. But tell me a book or something, an Audible that's made a difference for you, personal or business.
So there's 2 or 3 that stand out to me on Audible. I have the list pulled up because it's been a while. But Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller is fantastic. The Hidden DNA of Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google by Scott Galloway. And then Jab, Jab, Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk are all absolutely favorites of mine. And Gary can be a lot. I love him.
Yeah.
But it's this, and it's funny because it's the same thing that I think we're afraid of as content creators, is that you're going to say the same thing over and over and over in just a different way, but it's because it works. And so Jab, Jab, Right Hook is, hey, give them value, and then come in with your hook to ask them for something. That's exactly what agents should be doing on a regular basis. Give them value, give them market reports, give them CMAs, whatever it might be. And that's what brokers should be doing for recruiting. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Have you follow Gary V still now?
Yeah.
Did he find Jesus or something? Like his stuff's been so nice lately. I don't know if you've seen it, but and I say that tongue in cheek out of much respect, because it seems like I'll open up something and on Sunday he'll say, for everyone reading this, I hope you just have a really great Sunday. It's almost like, have you noticed that?
No, the last one that I remember seeing on a Sunday was, and I'm a Browns fan, unfortunately, but it was him yelling. It was after the Jets beat the Browns, I think last year.
Yeah.
But it was him yelling, "Receipts, mother, receipts." And yeah, so no, Gary's a big personality for sure, but he really has kind of changed what he is preaching to
Yeah.
he's practicing exactly what he preaches. And so if you look at his Instagram, like it's all green screen
Yeah.
with the article behind him. And it's
Yeah.
because he's telling you this is what works.
Yeah.
And he even said, like, hey, my engagement's gone up 5x on anything I do with a green screen. So
Yeah. I love that.
I need
And
to be doing that.
yeah, Jared James is on that bandwagon right now too. The green screen.
Yeah.
He actually was. I just listened to a video he did the other day, and I tried my first one. It was terrible, but I'm gonna
I
keep
have
working
one
on
saved
it.
in my drafts and I still haven't posted it.
That's the way I felt. I'm like, I'm such a chicken. I'm telling all these people, don't worry about it. What it sends, like, send it anyway. You said the second book that you said was The Four by what? Who's that by?
It was The Four by Scott Galloway.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna put links to those in the show notes, so anybody wants to find it, they can. I appreciate that. Last question for you, my friend. We've just scratched the surface. We've touched the tip of the iceberg. My daughter's learning about the Titanic in school. It's really crazy. Speaking of icebergs, but I appreciate you. We're going to have more episodes to come. I got to get you on here about AI and some other stuff, video, newsletter making, content crushing. But tell me, the name of our podcast, Rise Up in Real Estate. The reason I created it was, the people on our show, honestly, I feel like are above the mediocrity of the world. I think most of us that are running organizations like yours or like mine have decided, hey, I'm going to be up here. Gary V's done that. You mentioned him, Darren Hardy, all these people that we follow certainly do. But is there something in your day that you do that you feel like kind of sets you apart? It's clearly not sleep, but something you do to rise up above.
Honestly, it's probably video. There's so many agents or brokers, or it doesn't matter who your audience is, people that are afraid of doing video. But it is by far the easiest to put out there. It takes me way less time to put video out than it does write that newsletter. So I can sit down and do an unscripted video in 5 minutes or less, as opposed to sit down, include the hyperlinks and everything else in the newsletter, which takes me over an hour. So, and maybe video is not the right word or topic, but getting outside of your comfort zone. And like you said, we tell agents all the time, don't rewatch what you just recorded. Just do it and put it out there. Yeah. I realized early on, like, hey, I'm not the best looking real estate model for video, but guess what? What I have to say, if it's valuable enough, and I believe that every agent has a story to tell. I believe that every agent has a niche, whether it's dog parks or they love kayaking or, whatever it is, they can make their own spin on video to talk about their community in a way that nobody else can. And so that's where I would say that agents need to rise up, get outside of their comfort zone, put it on your calendar. If you don't put it on your calendar, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be held accountable. Have somebody hold you accountable for it so that, I would advise everyone, and I know there's video services out there that do this, but hire an editor or hire somebody that's going to edit your videos so that you are paying that monthly fee. And if you go 3 months without doing a video and you're not giving them enough work, you're going to realize, hey, I'm wasting this money. So that's my 2 cents.
What would you say to someone? This is a secondary question, but I was thinking about it. Maybe you have an answer. Someone who doesn't do video. And I love your approach. I talk about that as well. Like, everyone has something. We have experiences, if at the very minimum, that you can talk about. But everybody's got something. But how, if you were counseling someone who's thinking about getting into video, I mean, they've been sneaking up on it for the last 10 years, right? And they're going to now do it. How frequently do you recommend someone jump on board doing it? Or is it not really a frequency? You just do it when you can?
So I think we talk about this a lot because and this goes back to Gary Vee. You're competing for attention. So you're competing against Apple, you're competing against Nike, you're competing against all these major brands that you see in your Facebook feed as you're scrolling. So with that said, you also don't want to just be posting crap just to be posting crap, because you're going to lose viewership if you're not A, being authentic, and B, putting out value. So if you have valuable insight to provide, put that content out there. I don't know as you don't need to come up necessarily with content every day, but I would say at least every week, be putting some kind of content out there that people can relate to. And if you stutter or you talk out of the side of your mouth like I do sometimes, like, guess what? That's how you look in real life. It's
right.
It happens. And I remember seeing, I think it was Darren Persinger talk about that years ago, because he had a speech impediment growing up and he was terrified to be on video. But you just have to get out there, get outside of your comfort zone and do it. But agents have that value proposition for sure with the MLS. You have data that you have access to and can disseminate in a way that Zillow cannot, because you can tell them about the dog down the street that bit the neighbor's kid. Not that you want to do that, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you have insight that about the best restaurants in the area. You know, hey, my favorite local pizza pub is right around the corner from there. I mean, let me see, I won't be able to pull it up for the video. I wrote a text message this long to a guy the other day that's relocating to the area. I'm like, hey, he said, what are your favorite spots? And I was like, gosh, it took me about 30 minutes to write it. So instead of rewriting that every time, make that a blog post, make that a video, make it 10 videos, recycle that content. And, that's a big thing that we're using AI for, is taking that long form content, the 15, 20-minute video, and breaking it down into bite-sized reels or YouTube shorts.
Because you can get a lot of content out of one piece.
20 to 25 pieces out of a 15, 20-minute video.
Yeah. So let's say you did 2 15-minute videos and you broke them down using that tool that you shared with me. You have content one a week, just with those two things. You can, you said 52, you need 52 videos. You could do it in 2 15 minutes. So that's
right.
There you have it. I mean, there's the tip for the day. And, I love, you've said a few times today, and I wasn't expecting it, but there's success and there is abundance outside of your comfort zone. But sometimes it's not a fun place to be. But hey, have we mentioned David Goggins, or have we mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk, or have we mentioned any of these people? Apple? I mean, did Steve Jobs operate outside his comfort zone, or Elon Musk? Any of these controversial characters? They're outside of their comfort zone a lot. And that's a great word. And I appreciate you very much. Tell us how we can find you. If there's a listener that wants to connect with you, what's the number one way to do that?
Add me on Facebook. That's where I'm probably most active. I chat with friends on Instagram and look at funny videos, but that's not my forum. But Agent After Hours is on everything. It's on YouTube. It's on Instagram. Abby runs that for us. It's on Facebook. But we've really doubled down, focused on YouTube at the moment right now.
Cool. I will add all of that to the show notes. For those of you listening, you can just go to the show notes and click. There'll be a live link on all of those things, as well as the books he's recommended. And man, from learning a little bit about your dad all the way to staying out of the comfort zones, I've appreciated your time. Thank you so much for sharing with Rise Up in Real Estate. You've been a true pleasure, my friend.
Hey, likewise. It's been great to be here.
Well, hey, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for listening to Rise Up in Real Estate. If you liked hanging out with us today, please find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Rise Up in Real Estate. Also, follow us right now on your favorite podcast host to hear more episodes. We really appreciate you spending some of your time with us. And until next time, let's do each other a favor and all help each other rise up.